Gardevoir, a Pokemon that many people like, sometimes a little bit too much. And I've got one here with me today because we're gonna use it for some explosions. That's right, it's another exploding meme team, this time featuring Gardevoir and some other new Pokemon introduced within the Teal Mask DLC. First up is Shiftry. Yeah, that's right, a new explosion user. We're using Shiftry because it also has access to some utility with Fake Out, and it has the ability Wind Rider, which increases its attack by 1 stage whenever a wind-type move is used against it. One such move is Tailwind, which we can use thanks to our second Pokemon, Drifblim. Drifblim is great because not only is it a ghost type, so it can essentially avoid being hurt by a friendly explosion, but it can also set up Tailwind for speed increases as well as triggering Shiftry's Wind Rider. But not only that, if you can activate Weakness Policy on Drifblim, it gets an attack increase as well as a speed increase thanks to Unburden, which means it too can use Explosion to get up some big damage. How exactly are we going to go and activate that Weakness Policy? Well, let's move on to our next Pokemon. Now, we've had normal type explosions and last time we had an electric type explosion, but now I want to introduce you to fairy type explosions with none other than Gardevoir. First off, Gardevoir also falls in some utility by having Vacuum Wave and Shadow Sneak, both of which are priority moves that can trigger Drifblim's Weakness Policy depending on whether or not it is terrestrialized. But after that though, Gardevoir has the move Misty Explosion, a special fairy type move that has a base power of 100. This move can get further boosted by 20% with Gardevoir's held item, the Fairy Feather, but that's not all. Misty Explosion is able to get another 50% boost if used on Misty Terrain. How are we gonna get Misty Terrain on the field? Well, once again, we're gonna move on to our next Pokemon for that. He's back, he's got a top hat, it is Galarian Weezing. With its ability Misty Surge, when sent out it creates Misty Terrain, perfect for Gardevoir's Misty Explosions. Weezing serves as a support for Gardevoir, not only by setting up the terrain, but also it has just enough speed to move before the Gardevoir, allowing it to use Acid Spray, which is guaranteed to drop a target's special defense by 2 stages, which can really help take down some of those bulkier enemies. It also has enough special defense to survive Gardevoir's Misty Explosion too, after which it can dish out its own damage with Flamethrower, Strange Team, or Belch if it has eaten its Citrus Berry. For the final 2 Pokemon, we're gonna go with the classic cheese strat of Anger Point Krookodile. It's got the typical moveset of Power Trip, Protect, and some spread moves. And it also has a Life Orb, not a Choice Scarf, for reasons you'll see in a minute. And the way we are going to reliably get a crit is by using Lucario with the trusty Lansat Berry. Just like Gardevoir, Lucario has the priority move Vacuum Wave, which can be used to activate Drifblim's Weakness Policy if it's terrored. After that, Lucario will survive on just enough HP from Drifblim's Terrestrialized Explosion to activate its Lansat Berry. This means that on the following turn, it can use Shadow Claw to get a crit on Krookodile. And once again, the speeds have been tuned just right so that Lucario has a single point of speed more than Krookodile to ensure that it goes first. So, now that we've gone through the team, let's see it in action, shall we? Our first match is up against Anna with a Melodic, Baxcalibur, Gothitelle, Ogerpon, a Sylveon, as well as a Volcarona. So we're gonna lead off with Shiftry, and you gotta have Drifblim with it to make advantage of Wind Rider. And in the back we'll have Gardevoir and Weezing, our Misty Terrain experts. And it starts off with Gothitelle as well as Sylveon. Now Gothitelle might be going for a Trick Room here, or might do something like a Perish Song. So what we'll do is we'll have Shiftry use a Fake Out on the Gothitelle, meanwhile Drifblim can set up a Tailwind. Tailwind of course to activate Shiftry's Wind Rider, give it an attack boost as well as a speed boost later on. Gothitelle goes first though with Helping Hand, so Fake Out isn't gonna matter. Sylveon though, gonna get probably, I assume, Hyper Voice, right? Which will be a Fairy type now thanks to Pixelate. It takes Shiftry down to 1 HP, that's why we give it a Sash. Thankfully though, Drifblim is able to tank the hit fairly well. Sylveon gets an attack boost with Throat Spray, but I don't think that attack boost is gonna help because Tailwind now means that we get a speed boost, and as you'll see in a second here, Shiftry Wind Rider gets an attack increase. Now we can go for an Explosion with Shiftry. We don't need a Terror because we have the attack boost. And Drifblim, just like Gothitelle, we can use Helping Hand of our own, although I don't really know how Drifblim will clap. It's more like helping, I don't know, are those hands that this will flap things? Either way though, Helping Hand means that this is going to do even more damage. And no Protect from their side, we get an Explosion. I will say, I'm glad that, I was a bit worried that Sylveon may or may not have Quick Attack, because I know early on, Sylveons used to carry Quick Attack, so you would have a sort of a Fairy type priority move with Pixelate. But thankfully though, they didn't do that here, and so we get a nice clean double KO with Drifblim staying alive thanks to being a ghost type, so it is immune to the normal type explosion. Next up though, we can send in Gardevoir, because Gardevoir will be able to activate Drifblim's weakness policy as well. He sends out, or she rather, Anna, sends out Volcarona as well as Ogerpon. Ogerpon of course has Mold Breaker, and we know, okay well, we don't know if there's a Sash on either of those, but we can use Shadow Sneak on Drifblim and then use Explosion. Telepathy on Gardevoir means that we are safe, and Shadow Sneak being a priority move means that we will move first. So Shadow Sneak does a small bit of damage onto Drifblim, and it is super effective, which means that the weakness policy activates. Thankfully, Shadow Sneak is a physical move, so we don't have to worry about accidentally KOing our own Drifblim unless we somehow get a crit there. But with an increase in attack and the Unburden now activating instantly because it no longer has an item, it gets an even bigger speed boost, more than just Tailwind, and is able to go first and get a double KO on both the Ogerpon as well as the Volcarona. We didn't even get to use Gardevoir's Misty Explosion, unfortunately, because in theory after this we would have Weezing come in, and then we would have Gardevoir use Explosion as well. Maybe if they had used Spiky Shield we could have done that, but I'll take it anyway. A win is a win. We'll maybe get a better one in the next match. For our next match, we are up against, what a name, Baby Cheeks. Now, because we didn't get off the fancy big Gardevoir Explosion, we're going to try again and go Shiftry, Drifblim lead, as well as having the Gardevoir Weezing in the back. Now, hopefully this time, maybe they do some cheeky protects to allow us to have Gardevoir explode, but we'll see. Baby Cheeks leads with Politoed and Ogerpon, what looks to be like a rain team with the Water Mask Ogerpon, as the Politoed sets the rain up for it. But same thing like last time, we're going to have a Fake Out on the Ogerpon because I'm worried about what it can do, and then we can go for a Tailwind once again with Drifblim. So no Spiky Shield from them means that we do get the Fake Out, and Ogerpon is flinched there, and Politoed uses Blizzard, which unfortunately for him is a wind type move, technically speaking. So Shiftry doesn't even take any damage, Shiftry only gets the attack boost from it. That also means that Drifblim instantly gets the weakness policy boost and survives the attack as well. This is just coming up, everything's coming up Shanaenae this turn here. We have Tailwind up, we have +2 attack on Shiftry now thanks to double Wind Rider. We have Drifblim already speedy enough as is, so we can now go for an Explosion. Meanwhile, we can just have Drifblim use Helping Hand on the Shiftry. So Helping Hand, probably not necessary, the Helping Hand, but we do it anyway though. And no Protect coming out of them means that Shiftry +2 Helping Hand Explosion attack should absolutely get a double KO against Politoed as well as the Ogerpon. Meanwhile, of course, Drifblim not phased one bit. Arguably, what I could have done there is I could have used, like, say, Acrobatics into one of those slots in case maybe they try to switch out into a possible Flutter Mane. But either way though, Gardevoir comes out next, and Chien-Pao, which almost certainly has a Focus Sash, comes out, as well as Flutter Mane, which Explosion won't hit. So a very definitely there's no way we can win on this turn and double KO both of them. Booster Energy on the Flutter Mane though, with Booster Energy Speed, although we do have Tailwind up. Tailwind plus Unburden on Drifblim as well. Now, knowing that Chien-Pao most likely has Focus Sash, we're going to try and double into that with Gardevoir using a Vacuum Wave, although we're going to Terra as well so that we no longer have a Psychic typing. So we're only a Fairy type. Meanwhile, Drifblim will just go for the classic Explosion. We know it won't KO Flutter Mane, but that's good. That means that we can hopefully KO it with Gardevoir in the following turn. And the nice thing about Blizzard going first and activating our weakness policy means that we don't have to worry about using Shadow Sneak on our own Drifblim, so we can afford to go for this Vacuum Wave to break Sash. Although even then though, Chien-Pao's being pretty weak, so I think a Vacuum Wave plus Explosion would have KO'd anyway. Especially with a critical hit Vacuum Wave nearly one-shotting the Chien-Pao. Of course, Vacuum Wave is a special type move, so it does get to take advantage of Gardevoir's big special attack. Meanwhile, Drifblim with the boosted attack, all to deal a single point of damage to Chien-Pao. Of course, it doesn't hit the Flutter Mane nor the Gardevoir, but that is perfectly fine. That means that Gardevoir can get rid of it on the following turn. And Shadow Ball comes out from him. That is why we go Terra Fairy. So we don't take too much damage. We take about, what, 70-ish damage? So we do still have another one, but now we can send in the Galarian Weezing, who sets up the Misty terrain thanks to Misty Surge. This, of course, means that if we, well, when we absolutely do use Misty Explosion now, you can see there it gets a boost on Misty terrain. Weezing as well can use Acid Spray on Flutter Mane to lower its special defense if for some reason it goes to Terra. Shadow Ball moves first and it goes into the Wheezing. It does quite a bit of damage, but that means that we get to eat our Citrus Berry, which means that technically speaking, if this somehow survives, we can use Belch on the following turn. But with the speed tiering, Wheezing moves before Gardevoir, which doesn't do much damage, but special defense partially falls. So, Gardevoir, the Fairy Explosion with Misty Explosion. Terra boosted, Fairy Feather, Misty Terrain, gets a KO on Flutter Mane. And Wheezing tanks the hit as well to survive. The last one standing. There it is, Gardevoir, the Exploder, finally having a claim to fame now. You too can explode too. Don't let your memes be dreams. You too can explode on the battlefield. And for our final match, we're up against Jin. Jin like what is it? Golden Sun Jin. Been a while since I've seen that name, or a name like that. But we gotta show off the Anger Point Crocodile, right? So we're gonna need Lucario, Drifblim, and have in the back Crocodile as well as Gardevoir. Jin decides to lead out with Medicham and Empoleon, two Pokemon that honestly, I have no idea what they do. So this is gonna be very interesting. Now, Lucario can use a Vacuum Wave on Drifblim, and even though it says it has no effect right now, that is fine because we are going to Terrestrialize to become a normal type and use Explosion. This of course means that going normal type, we now do have a weakness to Vacuum Wave, and because it is a priority move, Lucario can go and hit it first, which will activate Weakness Policy. You know the drill. Weakness Policy, boost attack, no longer has an item, Unburden activates, gets a speed boost. It's the classic. The Lucario hits Drifblim there. Super effective damage. That means that we get an attack boost. I will say as well, Lucario is immune to Intimidates and also cannot be faked out himself. So this is in theory sort of a guaranteed move. And unless they are trying to fake out the Ghost type Drifblim predicting the explosion, you will almost always get this off. Although unfortunately, Empoleon being a Steel type does not go down to the explosion. Lucario gets brought dangerously low though. Low enough that it is going to be in range for the Landsat Berry. But the issue is, Empoleon still has a turn to go, so there is a very real chance that even though Lucario gets the Landsat Berry here, Empoleon can just take it out with another move of its own. The Landsat Berry activates to get us pumped, and the Empoleon uses, thankfully to us, Empoleon uses Agility to give a speed increase there. But next up we can send in Crocodile. Now in theory, we could use Vacuum Wave. It is a super effective move on the Empoleon right now, and it will bypass his speed boost. But at the time, I really wanted to get off the Crocodile Anger Point strat. So I said, you know what? I'm going to call their bluff. I'm going to Shadow Claw the Crocodile, which is not a priority move, but it does have a higher critical chance. And I will Rock Slide instead, banking on the fact that his Empoleon doesn't just insta-KO me here. Because he can absolutely KO Lucario with a low health there. And you can probably use something like a Hydro Pump or anything really, or Liquidation on the Crocodile. Lucky us though, he decides to use Roost, which is very nice for us, because that means that Lucario gets to go and use Shadow Claw on Crocodile, and with the Landsat Berry plus the heightened crit chance, it is a guaranteed essentially critical hit, which means Anger Point activates, plus 6 stages of attack stats, which is essentially a 4 times attack. With Life Orb, Rock Slide takes out the Leavanny. But Empoleon is built tough. Resisting the attack, it goes essentially back down to what it was before the Roost. But now that we have had Lucario do its duty, it no longer has to Shadow Claw the Crocodile, so now it has freed up its attack to go for the Empoleon, as Corviknight comes out next. So we can use Vacuum Wave on the Empoleon. It's going to be super effective. It will go first, and we can use Power Trip on Corviknight. Power Trip only has a base 20 power, but for each stage increase, it gets a bonus 20. So it will have a 140 base power thanks to the 6 extra stat boost. Vacuum Wave goes first and takes out Empoleon in one hit with a crit, of course. Well, not really, of course, but a heightened chance thanks to the 2 stacks of crit rate boost. Good chance, great setup there with the Agility and Roost, by the way. Meanwhile, Power Trip, the bulky Corviknight goes down in one hit thanks to the 140 base power Life Orb Power Trip. And just like that, we have yet another Explosion Anger Point team down in the books. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and you enjoyed this team. If you enjoy meme teams like this or just Pokemon in general, please do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. And while you're at it, why not consider looking at some of the other meme teams that I have made in the past. Until the next time though, thanks for watching and bye bye.